Hello. Welcome to the Billy Wilder Theater. Why, thank you. Sorry we're getting a late start, but there are so many people here, so we're trying to get everyone seated. I'm Claudia Bester. I'm the Director of Public Programs here at the museum, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to tonight's screening, the Los Angeles premiere of Meditation, Creativity, Peace. Tonight we're going to screen the film, which is 71 minutes long, and afterwards David Lynch and Russell Brand will come out for a discussion about Transcendental Meditation with Bob Roth, the Executive Director of the David Lynch Foundation. And now I'm very happy to welcome Chris Bush from the David Lynch Foundation. He's going to introduce the film. Thanks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome here in our two screening rooms and in our outdoor screening area to the Los Angeles premiere of Meditation, Creativity, and Peace. My name is Chris Bush. My wife Julia and I are directors of expansion and development for the David Lynch Foundation in Los Angeles. And along with Lynn Kaplan, our director of programs, Barry Scher, and Joanna Plavsky, board members, we welcome you here tonight. In 2007, David was invited to speak at film schools in 16 countries, starting in Israel and moving throughout Europe. This film is a compilation of highlights recorded by film students at each film school in each location and edited by Noriko Miyakawa and the crew of David Lynch Foundation Television. The format was open question and answer, not pre-scripted. David did not have prepared remarks, and covered every topic imaginable, ranging from David's filmmaking, the creative process, meditation, consciousness, and even David's hairstyling. And David was just answered so authentically every question, no matter how divine or profane. It was interesting. I think he was surprised by how many questions dealt with meditation, consciousness, and world peace. It was very heartening. After this screening, please stick around. We'll have a question and answer hosted by Russell Brand. Thank you, Russell. And featuring David and Executive Director of the Foundation, Bob Roth. And then after the question and answer, everyone's invited to stay for a reception, enjoying coffee and donuts, provided by Heather Zaplatel and David Lynch Signature Organic Coffee, and Top Pot Donuts brought down fresh from Seattle. So that'll be fun. Everyone, welcome and enjoy the show. Thank you.
Now the moment you've all been waiting for. I am thrilled to introduce David Lynch, Russell Brand, and Bob Roth to the stage. As everyone here knows very well, David Lynch is the award-winning director, writer, and producer of brilliant films like Eraserhead, Elephant Man, Wild at Heart, Twin Peaks, Blue Velvet, Lost Highway, Straight Story, Mulholland Drive, and Inland Empire. Mr. Lynch is also the founder and chairman of the board of the David Lynch Foundation for Consciousness-Based Education and World Peace. Bob Roth is the executive director of the David Lynch Foundation, where he's helped to direct the introduction of the Transcendental Meditation program to over 150,000 at-risk students in 130 public and charter schools in the United States, Latin America, the Middle East, and Africa. He also oversees the introduction of the Transcendental Meditation program in business, industry, and governmental organizations, and is the author of the definitive book on the technique entitled Transcendental Meditation, which has been published in 21 languages. Russell Brand is, of course, the renowned English comedian, actor, singer, and author with major roles in Forgetting Sarah Marshall, Get Him to the Greek, Despicable Me, and Arthur. And I hear Russell has been practicing transcendental meditation for 3.5 years. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Bob Roth, Russell Brand, and David Lynch.
We're going to get to those donuts real soon, I hope.
David, I'm moderating this conversation that's happening now. I'm the moderator.
This is beautiful news, Russell.
Firstly, I'd like to thank you very much for that film that you've both made. Bobby as the producer, and David, I believe you're the star of the film. I found your sweetness and your sincerity and authenticity are beyond question. Given that so many questions are articulately asked and responded to over the film, when watching it, is there anything additionally that you feel is pertinent to convey?
I would like to know if anybody has any additional questions.
Do you? I've got some, right? Here's one. While you lot get your confidence together for another question, and bearing in mind, people that are in here, you're in a particularly fortunate position because outside there's a whole great big ghetto of more people watching on a sort of an outside screen, huddled. There are knife fights out there. People have formed gangs. They haven't. It's very peaceful, as one might imagine. What I thought is, how do you, David, as you continue to meditate and you can continue to confront the seduction and allure of the material world, as you sort of said with yourself, your consciousness grows, you get access to more ideas. Do you not think that somehow even the materialistic allure is grown, like temptation itself grown by the expansiveness of consciousness? Discuss.
It's true. Everything gets better and better. So the material world looks and gets better. And when you have more of that unity coming up from within. I say gold comes in, garbage goes out, and you really start enjoying life and feeling good in the body. It's very, very beautiful.
Yes. Do you find, like, I mean, one of the questions that I asked Dave very early on was sometimes I'll find myself in a situation, it's late at night, I was alone, and I'd say, like, in this situation, I have the opportunity for masturbatory activity or meditative activity. And I said to David, often in this situation, I will choose masturbation. Why is this? And David goes, that's because you love to masturbate.
And he enjoys it more and more and more.
Because of meditation. Yes. So through meditation, everything... Do you think there will come a point, David, where through transcendence, not just I as an individual, but perhaps society as a whole, will release its grip on the rod that is consumerism and sensuality and fully embrace an ascetic and a spiritual existence? Sorry for the metaphor.
I think it will be a kind of a situation where people can fulfill their desires very easily. And like I said in the thing, where you can travel anywhere in the world and meet a friend, not an enemy. And fulfilling your desires, for Russell, we know what his desires are. And each of us have different desires. So it's the idea that you can grow and find this fulfillment. And the key is, like I said, in that field within, that treasury within. And Transcendental Meditation, just the key that opens the door to that, easily and effortlessly. And because it's easy and effortless, some people say it's a Mickey Mouse form of meditation or it's for beginners. That is total baloney. It's an ancient form of meditation, so profoundly beautiful for the human being. And it's easy only because the tendency of the human being is to always want to go to fields of greater happiness. So once you're pointed within, it's like a magnet pulls you to the field of infinite happiness. And it's so beautiful and so important. It's a stress buster and many, 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 many other glorious things. And these days, we really need this stress buster.
That's a wonderful answer. I'm going to ask Bob Roth one question before we throw to the floor on the assumption that most of the questions will be for David. Bob. Bob, you have now produced a David Lynch film. Congratulations. You've produced a David Lynch film that I actually understood. Was it a difficult process? Tell me what challenges you faced.
No.
No, you're not going to tell me.
No, I mean, I think this film, what was amazing to us when we went on this tour, and this was 2 or 3 months, but David began in 2005. He went to universities all over America. He went Latin America, Ukraine, everywhere. In the beginning days, many of the questions were about filmmaking. Towards the end of the days, years later, almost every question was about meditation, no matter where we went. And David told his story. It was very simple to put together. David is an incredibly articulate person, human being. Just a second, be quiet, because this is my last time to talk. Thus spake Russell. I have to tell you that of all the people I've taught, many, many thousands of people, I taught Russell Brand one of the most enjoyable profound experience I've ever had teaching Russell to meditate. He's an extraordinary person, very funny, but I just wanted to say that I respect and appreciate you a lot.
I'm glad I gave you this brief window within which to speak. Actually, let's get more from Bob. Let's now have questions from the audience. Yes, madam, front row, blonde hair.
Hi, David. In the 70s, my mom was practicing Transcendental Meditation, but she wouldn't share her mantra with my brother and I, so she told us to sit with her and just inwardly hum. So my question to you is, how does one go about getting a mantra for Transcendental Meditation, and does it cost something?
That's a real good question. As you heard tonight, a mantra is a very specific sound, vibration, thought. The mantra you get in Transcendental Meditation is like a law of nature, designed for a specific purpose to turn the awareness within, 180 degrees within, and you naturally dive. There's a reason why you don't say your mantra. The mantra is meant to go within, so you don't say it out. And like my friend Charlie Lucci said, when you say it out, it's like letting air out of your tires. So it's your mantra, and it's designed to take you within, all the way within. You need a legitimate teacher of Transcendental Meditation as taught by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. There's lots of people out there that say, I'll teach you Transcendental Meditation, and I'll give it to you for this amount less or whatever. I don't know what the fee is right now. Bobby is a long-time 40-year teacher, but the David Lynch Foundation was set up to give Transcendental Meditation first to any student who wanted it anywhere in the world, and now pretty much to any person who wants it anywhere in the world. And if you write a letter, chances are you could get a scholarship to get it for very reasonably, priced, or for free, depending on your need. And then the only thing I would ask is, if you get it for free, that if you become a multimillionaire or rich, you would give that gift to somebody else later on, and you will stay regular in your meditation. It's no good just to start. It's the regular practice that takes you to the goal. So there's a way, to get this. You need a legitimate teacher. There's some great teachers here in LA, and it takes about 4 days to learn, about an hour and a half each day. At the end of the teaching, you understand this meditation, you understand your questions are answered, and you've got this technique now for the rest of your life. If ever you want to get more questions asked, you call your teacher, or if you want to get your meditation checked, you can go get your meditation checked. And then you just stay regular and watch things get better and better. And it will, because you're transcending and experiencing that eternal level of life.
Thank you. Yes, madam, there. Yeah, you. I don't know how to describe people. What if I make a mistake and I say, you, hunchback? Oh, no, yeah. It's not a hunchback.
I thought it was interesting in the film, the part about when you talked about artists that are sort of tortured artists, and that, through meditation, they could find actually a deeper expression of their art. As an artist myself, you do sort of idealize the tortured artist, and myself, I feel like I have to have heartbreak to write a good record, or, feel sorrow to write a good poem. So I liked what you said about that, but I also, because of that, I guess the question is, do you really think that that's true? Since most artists do draw from great sorrow often to create good work, that can be transcended. No,
it won't transcend you. Sorrow won't transcend you. But I understand, of course, what you're talking about. I always say the artist doesn't have to suffer to show suffering, or to sing about suffering, or paint about suffering. You just have to understand it. But you yourself don't have to suffer. You can be super happy showing a horrible suffering bunch on the screen, or getting into your music, horrible suffering, heartbreak, torment. But you are a happy camper. It's really beautiful. And as I said in the thing, the more you suffer, the less chance of those ideas flowing, and the less happiness you're going to be writing those songs about suffering. And if those things come, if you love that idea and that thing, the music is talking to you in the suffering lyrics, you don't have to suffer to show suffering. That's the trick. You don't have to die to shoot a death scene.
Yes, I once asked David the same question. He said that you said to me that you think it becomes sort of some sort of like French existential idea to
That's
get
exactly
people
right, Russell.
laid. You said.
And yes, like the French started this thing, I think, the suffering artist in the garret. The guy's up there, it's cold, and he's painting. His paintings are liked by some people, maybe not everybody. He's suffering. But he's getting these girls, and they come up and they want to take care of him, and they bring hot food up to him, and they maybe spend the night, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to get girls, maybe. But it's not so, it's romantic for all of us, but for the artist freezing up there, especially if the girls don't show up, it's not romantic. And he'd be better off with some heat, some transcendental meditation, some good food, and a lot of paint.
Let's get someone further from the back so it doesn't seem like a partisan process. There's a lady over here in this flank. You're about the fourth row. Yes, the gentleman's coming to you now, the mic.
Oh, thanks. Hi, can I send a verbal letter to Bob to ask for the scholarship for meditation?
Received.
And I loved the film. It was so beautiful. Thank you.
Yes, I know that the foundation does lots of work getting free meditation to people, but like if you can afford it, you should pay for it. What about this person? What about this person over here? Sort of, yeah, someone's heading towards you. That's right, my love.
Bobby would like to comment on something.
Go on, Bob.
Is it okay? I've been teaching Transcendental Meditation, as Russell said, for over 40 years. And from the beginning days when I learned it and then became a teacher, my desire was to make this available for free to everyone in the world. And in my idealism at the time, I just thought it should be just everyone. But then, obviously, it dawns on one that we need thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of teachers. And these teachers need to be able to raise a family. They need to be able to send their kids to school. They need to be able to go get health care. And so I realized that really a teacher of meditation, as a legitimate teacher of yoga, they should have a better reputation in society. They provide a wonderful skill. They deserve an excellent, fair salary. And so our work with the foundation is to raise the money so we can provide teachers in schools, in prisons, as it was said at the beginning. We've provided now not 150,000, it's actually up to, it's an updated bio, almost 300,000 inner-city school kids in the United States, all over Europe. We're working in prisons. We're working in homeless shelters here in Los Angeles with Dr. Lois Lee, who's been doing work with girls and young girls and boys who are rescued from the streets from prostitution. We need teachers, so we do raise money. We do ask for money. And when you pay for Transcendental Meditation, if you're able to, much of that money goes to be able to help people who have no money to learn. So I wanted to say that.
Yeah, I don't think people are like trying to racketeer out of meditation. We're rinsing it.
Bobby drives a solid gold Cadillac.
I mean, obviously his bitches drive it.
A 1965 Morris Minor.
There's a gentleman over there patiently waiting to ask a question, then the lady a couple of rows back. Yes, sir.
The question is, you were talking about with doing the TM and certain things, creating certain things. My question is, if you're doing it, for extended periods of time, the things you wish for, do they become more altruistic and, and doing benefit for large numbers of people? Because if you look at one of the things with spirituality has been mixed up, like with The Secret, where people say, you wish, you meditate on things that could be purely selfish. And to me, I always thought, why would the universe, give you those things, where it's really towards things that have a universal benefit effect? What's your feeling about that?
My feeling is I heard in enlightenment, your desires get fulfilled, but the fulfilling of those desires is beneficial for all. And what's troubling is sometimes people have a desire that's good maybe for them, but lots of other people suffer because of their happiness. So I think it's both things. Your desires may change, but the more of that, unity growing, the gold growing, the easier it is to fulfill those desires, and the more those desires change to being also good for everybody.
Excuse me, David, I think I have a clever thing to say. Can I say it?
Please.
Well, once Bobby was teaching me to meditate, and I was sort of going, I think I'm seeing all these beings and whatever. And Bobby always goes, just carry on, like, sort of pass through this, go past this. And I was always sort of, because I like phenomena. I'm enchanted by phenomena, be it spiritual, ethereal phenomena, or material phenomena. Bobby says continue to the unified field where all things are one. And I suppose in response to your question, there would be a point where all of our individual desires would become unified, that they are all a permutation of the ultimate desire for union, for totality, as David expressed. They're all the inappropriate substitute for the desire to be at one with God, all appearing in acculturated myriad ways as a result of our individual education and experience. But ultimately, where we're going to head to is one unified desire through this process, through this practice, that there is ultimately only one. So the desires themselves will become unified, non-conflictual, and non-dualistic.
We're making a little CD of this, and you can hit half speed and understand what Russell said.
Can I say something?
But it was a good
Yes,
wasn't it?
It was beautiful. Can I say something?
Absolutely beautiful. Bobby would like to say something.
I have
now.
to get permission. It's an interesting question because everybody may know the term about the frontal lobe, which is the higher brain, which is this section, prefrontal cortex. It's right behind the forehead, and this is the higher brain. This is a part of the brain that governs judgment, decision-making, planning, problem-solving, also ethical reasoning, also sense of self. This is the higher brain. Stress, too much drugs, too much fatigue, alcohol, takes the frontal lobes offline. What the experience of transcending does, according to research at all the top universities now, is it strengthens the communication, the neural pathways between the front of the brain and the back of the brain, between the two sides of the frontal lobes. And this process actually develops those higher human values. So you can, in the secret, you can just have a regular old stressed person who decides, now I want to have this. But the desire is from such a base level. When you transcend, when you experience the self, when those connections are strengthened, quite spontaneously, your compassion grows. We know some people do Vipassana. Your compassion grows, your understanding grows, your impulsivity is less. You become more of a human being as the brain and being, was designed. So when a person grows in enlightenment, they don't grow in selfishness. They grow spontaneously in those higher moral values. I want to throw a little brain science in.
Bloody good bit of neurology that was, Bob. I think we'll enjoy that. As this lady has been waiting there quite patiently.
For any three of you, actually, interesting you mentioned Vipassana. I have studied Vipassana meditation. I noticed in the film, David said meditation that focuses on concentration, he rather poo-pooed it. And I'm wondering if you can explain the difference between a mantra and Vipassana, which is focused.
Bobby's been a teacher for 40 years. I'm going to let him answer that, but okay, I said in the thing, when you're focused or you have mental activity, concentration or contemplation, it just holds you on the surface. When you're aware of your breathing or aware of your footsteps on the pebbles in the garden or aware of the rose petal smell, your awareness is one size. It's not going to expand by smelling that rose. It's not going to expand by hearing your footsteps on the pebbles. It's not going to expand by watching your breath. It might be pleasant for some, but you're not going to transcend. Transcendental meditation turns the awareness within, and you go all the way within to that eternal field, and you experience that. And that experience is what's missing from today's life. You experience it, and automatically you infuse some, you start expanding consciousness. Now you have more awareness, and you be aware of the rose petals. There'll just be more beauty coming from those petals. The little the feet on those little stones, it's just going to be more thrilling. because you got more of what it takes to get the thrill. It stands to reason. It's common sense. Transcending is the ticket.
I actually don't think that there's a competition. I think that there are people, what you want to do, as David so forcefully said, is you want to transcend, and then vipassana, compassion, love, all those things naturally there. I teach so many people, TM, who also do a mindfulness meditation or do a vipassana meditation. It's completely different mechanics. Basically, if I could do science for a moment, basically science research understands that there's 3 basic types of meditation. One they call focused attention, which is a Zen Buddhism. It's a concentration of vipassana where you're concentrating, and that has gamma waves. It's high activity. The other is a mindfulness meditation, which is observing. I'm sure many people have tried this. Disengage. You're emotionally. You're not invested. You're watching your thoughts neutrally. You're letting your thoughts, whether they're positive or negative, you're just observing them, or you're observing the environment around you. You're mindful. You're present. That's like observing the waves on the surface of the ocean. And then the third approach is what they call spontaneous transcending. If you have the example of waves on the surface and a silent depth of the ocean, then this meditation, Transcendental Meditation, just allows one to just settle down, quiet down towards that level of the mind which is already silent. Having experienced that, mindfulness meditation is great. Having experienced that, vipassana meditation is great. I teach many Catholic priests and nuns and be careful and their prayer and religious people who then find their prayer more settled, more pure. Be still and know that I am God.
Wow. Well,
I'm talking too much. I'm sorry.
No, that was really amazing, Bobby, and well done in anticipating the plethora of Catholic jokes that I would have made given a 1 second opportunity. What I'm beginning to appreciate from what you're saying is that it is our nature to be empathetic, compassionate, and loving, and it takes a great deal of cultural infrastructure to distract us from that nature. Is that part of what you're saying? One of the points where I noticed a lot of frustration, only a bit, in fact, David, where I noticed your frustration was that bit where you were saying that there is some time imperative now. That more you look around and 6 more leaves are yellow when we spend time addressing superficial problems rather than water in the root, the analogy that you commonly use. What was that? How come that you feel some tension there?
Felt tension in my talk, you mean?
Yeah, just in that one bit. Like most of the time, you're a very sanguine man.
It's this thing of surface cures, and the surface cures never seem to really work, or if they work, like they just getting 1 leaf green at a time. So it's frustrating to hear about a peace plan, hear about peace greeting groups that really and truly were going to bring peace. And people don't listen or believe it or say, Dave, I'd really like to help, support those things. Please tell me what I can do. And I think that the game of life has this thing built into it, this trick that you can enliven this field of unity through human beings' activities, technologies of consciousness, and bring peace. And it only is going to come that way. This field is a field of infinite peace. And it'll rise up in the midst of diversity, and everyone will start enjoying life. The enemies will disappear. Negativity will go. It'll be so beautiful. And the key is right here now.
Ooh. That's the square root of 1% of people need to meditate, and this will have this impact. There's been some experimentation in that area, is that correct?
Yes, the ancient meditation texts say that when an individual alone meditates, the body gets this profound rest, the body heals itself, and it wakes up the brain for enlightenment. The texts also predict that when you have a percentage, square root of 1% or 1%, experiencing that deepest level, that there's a spillover effect, that the stress within the individual there's a spillover effect and stress in the collective consciousness or society that you might find in, hotspots can be diminished. I want to just say one thing here. I was at a press conference in Washington, D.C. when we were talking about this and some research, and a reporter came up to me from the Washington Post who'd been in Moscow and Kosovo, and he said, Bob, all the science was presented. He said, Bob, I absolutely have to tell you, I absolutely do not believe a word of what you just said. He said, but having spent 20 years in Washington, D.C., and seen what's being proposed to solve problems and end suffering and warfare, he said, I pray to God it will work. And I think that's the case. We can just say, oh, that's silly. Group meditation, it's not possible if you did this in hotspots or percentage. Great. What's the alternative? More of what's going on in Washington, D.C.? More partisan politics? We really have to hope and follow what David wants, David's inspiration with the foundation to create these groups.
Yes. Is there a question in this area so that there is some parity in sharing? Yeah, there's two gentlemen here. Perhaps they can do some sort of mashup question where they alternate words. And then David will understand it.
So it seems like a lot of this technique is kind of geared for adults, and I know you've done a lot of good work in high schools and high school students. I have a 12-year-old who's a preteen who is just started middle school, very stressful school, very tough. I feel he would benefit from it. I and my wife, myself, we both started meditation about 1.5 years ago. We see some benefits from it, and I have a hard time explaining to him what it is that Father does. On the other spectrum, there's my parents my mother just turned 73, and I feel that she would greatly benefit from this, having spent her whole life so stressed, providing for us and doing all this stuff. How would you teach this technique? Is 12 too early? Is 73 too late to start something like this?
You can get your sitting mantra at 10, and you meditate 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the afternoon. You could be 150 years old, and it's not too late to dive within, start enlivening that, and seeing 150-year-old life get better and better and better. And in schools, well, Bobby will tell you, it's amazing what's going on with the stress and what happens when they get transcendental meditation in the schools that have been some of the worst schools in the city. Turns around in 1 year to a school you would love your kids to go to. It is so beautiful. Bobby, tell the people what this is.
You go to davidlynchfoundation.org and you'll see videos of just extraordinary research. Lynn Kaplan and her team here in Los Angeles are involved in many charter schools in San Francisco. There's 3,000 kids who begin and end each school day with what they call quiet time, where they have 10 or 15 minutes of meditation. It's a voluntary program, but all the kids want to do it. We're in Chicago, Detroit, New York, Washington, D.C. And basically what happens is there's a significant stress absolutely undermines the learning process for children, as you know. Absolutely undermines their confidence, their learning readiness, everything. It fuels addictive behavior, violent behavior. And when a child can begin and end each school day with 10 minutes of just that deep silence, deep settledness, grades go up, test scores go up, graduation rates to the just to the roof and out the roof. And the thing is when a kid doesn't graduate, they go into the prison pipeline. So suspensions and expulsions, a complete transformation. And that's not us saying that, that's the school districts and their research. So Lynn Kaplan and her team of Pookie Freeberg, and I can't list everybody, great team here, and it can be put into schools. Absolutely, it should be put into schools. So yes, 12-year-old child and 73-year-old parent absolutely can learn.
Yes, all appropriate candidates. There was another question from someone in that row.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you have ever gotten any flack from any government agencies. I noticed you were going all over Europe in the film, and then meditation helps empower so many people. Is there ever going to be a time when perhaps the powers that be and big government could somehow approach you or maybe take it away from the people, since it is empowering?
It's actually the opposite. We're now the Veterans Administration and the Department of Defense just provided a $2.5 million grant to study the effects of TM on PTSD. 22 veterans commit suicide every day in America 22 veterans every day. So they're looking desperately. A handful of pills isn't doing it. It's a cocktail of drugs that make these young men and women crazier. So we're actually finding the National Institutes of Health have funded almost $30 million to document the effects of TM on stress and high blood pressure. So the opposite is happening. I think it's a universal approach. No one is afraid. Everyone is hopeful.
Yes. Oh, yeah, we'll just
A few more questions, and then we got to get to those donuts.
Yeah. There's a lady here, then a lady here, then we'll wrap it up.
Hi, I just wanted to ask if you have any advice for those who suffer from like anxiety or OCD, how they could quiet the mind enough to even get into transcendental meditation.
There's all these research studies. There's so many disorders, and there's a lot of people think, oh, so and so will never be able to meditate, not in a million years, and this kid will never be able to sit still to meditate. They learn this technique, and it's amazing. What they thought would never happen, they just take to it like ducks to water, and things start getting better. And all this field within is a field of balance. It's just a huge field of balance. You start infusing it, all these things start coming into balance. And that's, I guess, the definition of good health. It all starts coming into balance in a very natural, beautiful way. Happiness grows, things come into balance, and and they'll definitely be able to meditate, definitely.
Yes, I think it is clear from some of the personalities on this stage that something of an erratic individual myself at various times, diagnosed with anxiety, depression, manic depression. I've been a heroin addict, a crack addict. I've had all manner of labels applied, but the only label that is truly applicable is human being. When I once talked to Mike Tyson, right, and spoke to David about it subsequently and said, it's really mad because he's like a hugely intelligent person and he's this ferocity and this intensity, but there's this radiant sweetness to him. And David went, that's because he's a human being. I think that any self-applied labels or externally applied labels that you see as a boundary or a barrier will be annihilated, ameliorated by the application of this technology.
Just to be the science person here, when cortisol is secreted by the body when we feel anxious, and then it makes us feel more anxious, and then we secrete more cortisol, more anxious. It's also not a friend for weight gain. So it becomes a vicious cycle, and for some people it can become a panic attack. When you get a good night's sleep, cortisol levels will drop 6 to 10%. 20 minutes of transcendental meditation, cortisol levels drop 30 to 40%. Every meditation. There's a mechanism that every human being has within. We are hardwired for this. TM is not an acquired skill. The first hour you learn it, and there's a mechanism for the body to take profound rest, to wake up the brain, as David said so eloquently in the film, and for the body to heal itself and regenerate itself. So anxiety is not an obstacle to this.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is a last question from a lady here with rather elaborate and wonderful cuffs.
Thank you. So my question maybe it's slightly associational and logic, but I wonder what the relationship is, if there is one, to 19th century American transcendentalism as a certain version of idealism. And it seemed like when in the movie you make the chart of the relationship, the unity that undergirds everything, and then also those mental forms of unity, that there isn't that normal division between, that mind over body, that there's more of a continuity. So I wonder what the role of, action and materialism, where do the thoughts go? Is there still that sort of binary that structures it, or, what is the end to these ways of reconceptualizing things?
Whoa. I know that those transcendentalists, there's a book that a meditator wrote gathering all these things that the poets said, the transcendentalists in the old days said, and the long and the short of it, they were they were there. They were living it and seeing it and writing about it. So, this thing of transcending, it's people transcend without the technique, but they don't know how they did it, and they don't know how to do it again. It's just, this is a technique so you can do it every day. They say you can transcend between waking and sleeping. You got your head in the pillow, you're not asleep yet, but you're going from waking to sleeping, and you get in that gap, boom, you can get white light, a great feeling comes, you've just transcended. It's not foreign to the human being at all, like Bobby said. It's just, this is a technique that keeps you going. And I don't know what you just said about the rest.
That's wonderful. That was the last question of the evening. Unless David or Bobby, you have something that you would like
We're
to
going to
add.
talk about that over donuts.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure David and Bobby would like to thank everyone at the David Lynch Foundation for their wonderful work. Let's have a round of applause for the makers of this fantastic film, Bobby Roth, and of course David Lynch.